The QK65, probably the most hyped board of the year thus far, and maybe the most hyped budget board ever. Leading up to the release of the QK65, a bunch of big name keyboard YouTubers released their review videos and gave their impressions on the QK65, and it was pretty much unanimous across the board that everybody was in shock over the quality, the sound profile, and the price associated with this keyboard. So all of that hype built up, there's only one question left. Does it actually live up to the hype? Let's find out. You've probably heard this spiel before, but if not, let's break down how the QK65 came to be. So if you've been in this keyboard hobby for a while now, you've definitely heard of the Mr. Suit. It's a really high-end, limited release board that's known for its very creamy sound tests all over YouTube. The Mr. Suit is made by a company called OwLab. Now they also produce boards like the Spring and the Jelly Epoch. Basically really high-end, expensive keyboards that are really hard to get your hands on. Well, they decided to take their expertise and those creamy sounds and bring it to the other end of the spectrum, the budget or more entry side of the keyboard hobby. So what they did is they created a sister company called QwertyKeys. And the first product or first release from QwertyKeys is, you guessed it, the QK65. So the goal here, or the idea here behind this board, is bringing their knowledge and expertise from the high-end keyboards and making it into a more in-stock and available budget-friendly keyboard. QwertyKeys recently did a round one release of the QK65. It sold out in about 10 minutes. I was able to get my hands on this E-white and gold version, thankfully. But they do plan on making this board an in-stock board starting in May, and they've also expanded the color options and some choices that you have as well. So it's really great to see a company like OwLab and QwertyKeys making something that is in stock and accessible for the masses to get their hands on. So for $199 to $269 to get this thing at your door in the United States, that's starting to flirt with not budget or entry level in my opinion. You still need to add switches and keycaps, so this certainly isn't a cheap board by any means. There are definitely cheaper options out there. Probably few that are an aluminum keyboard, also gasket mounted, and you're also getting a ton with this keyboard for that price point. So let's take a look at everything that comes with the QK65. All right, there's a lot to unpack here. Let's start by mentioning that really nice carrying case you get, as well as the coiled USB-C cable that has the QwertyKeys logo on it. You get a screwdriver and some extra hardware and two different styles of gaskets. They call these sleeves and socks. The smaller sock gaskets are meant to give you more flex as there's less gasket touching the keyboard. You also get rubber feet that go on the bottom of the keyboard to hide the screws. Now my version came with OwLab stabilizers included, but I'm not sure if QwertyKeys is going to continue to do this and include these going forward. As far as plates, there are 4 options available. I have here the aluminum plate, which you can see there are some flex cuts in the plate, but overall this is a pretty stiff typing experience. I also got the softer palm plate as well, as this will produce quite a different sound than the stiffer aluminum. The QK65 has the option to get a hot swap PCB or solder PCB. I got one of each here, but I'll be using the hot swap in today's video. Each PCB comes with a piece of foam to go in between the plate and PCB, and also comes with this super thin foam that's meant to go under the stabilizers and switches and rest just on top of the PCB. And inside the case you have a layer of case foam to sit under the PCB, and then finally you have a big piece of silicone to help dampen the sound as well. All right, so there's no denying you're getting a ton with this keyboard at that price point. But let's go ahead and build up the QK65. Let's see the construction of the keyboard, and then ultimately what everybody's here for, let's hear how it sounds. All right, so let's start with laying down that really thin piece of foam on top of the PCB. Next, we'll install those OwLab stabilizers and then lay down the plate foam. And finally, we'll lay the palm plate on top of all of this. I'll be building this today with the Gateron Oil King switches. These come factory lubed, and I haven't opened them up and made any adjustments yet, as I wanted to hear how they sound stock. Next, we need to install the gaskets. To get the most flex out of this board, we'll be building today with these smaller sock gaskets, and they simply just slide onto the plate as you can see here. Flipping the board over, you then remove the bottom weight with 4 screws. And once you pop that weight off, you'll find the true bottom case of the keyboard, and this can be removed by unscrewing 8 more screws, which then will release the top and bottom case from each other. Flipping the top over, we'll lay the PCB and plate down, and you can see where the gaskets actually rest within the top case. We'll then take the bottom case and lay that down and reattach those 8 screws to secure the PCB and plate in the middle here. Then we'll screw the bottom gold weight back into place, and finally we'll plug in those rubber feet, which actually end up hiding the screws so that none are visible on this entire keyboard. A really nice aesthetic touch from QwertyKeys. Finally, let's add some GMK Moto 2 keycaps, and we're all done and ready for the sound test. Before we get to the sound test though, I want to give a huge shout out to my first ever channel sponsor, ThoughtKeys.com. They've hooked me up with a ton of switches and other supplies for a bunch of builds that I have upcoming, so very grateful to those guys over there at ThoughtKeys.com. And there's a link in the description below if you have any keyboard needs. 5% off if you use that link or code LRK at checkout. So thanks to those guys over at ThoughtKeys.com. All right, now that we've built up this keyboard, I'll drop the sound tests in now with the Oil King switches. I'll do 2 comparisons with the palm plate versus the aluminum plate so you can hear the difference that the plate makes in this keyboard. And stick around to the very end of the video where I'll do some sound tests with 3 other switches. There's really no rhyme or reason to these 3 switches other than I had them handy and they were already lubed, but you'll definitely want to stick around and check out those sound tests at the end. All right, so what do you guys think? Does it live up to the hype? In my opinion, it does. You're getting a lot of bang for your buck here for the $159. You're getting the case, the USB-C cable, a bunch of foam and silicone dampening, and you're getting an aluminum keyboard with 2 different gasket mounting styles included with this kit. This is really just an incredibly satisfying keyboard to type on. I wish there was a little bit more flex with the gasket mount, but that sound, it's really something that you hear often in really high-end keyboards. So to get that sound profile in a budget or entry-level keyboard is pretty amazing from QwertyKeys and what they've done here with the QK65. Now, I don't have a Mr. Suit, so I can't do a direct side-by-side comparison. I would love to get my hands on one, but to me, it sounds fairly similar for a fraction of the cost. So if you're in the market for a budget keyboard, look no further than the QK65. In my opinion, this thing just blows other keyboards at this price point out of the water, and coming mid-May, it's going to be easily accessible, an in-stock keyboard that you can readily get your hands on, and it's definitely gonna be the daily typer for me for a little while here. Just wanna give a big thank you to everybody who took the time to watch this video on the QK65. I really appreciate it. And now I'll leave you with a couple of sound tests. Once again, it's the Novelty cream switches, banana splits, and a prototype linear switch called the Crows that I have. Enjoy the sound test, and until next time, happy typing.